introduce him. Okay, Ferlin, you can introduce our guest today, and we're very appreciative of having him come speak to H&H Club.
I am glad to have him here today. You know, for the last 30 minutes, we've been talking about all these legislative races and how important they are, and we've all been involved in legislative races and offices for the executive branch. We've done it for years. These judicial races, I got involved in this thing, and they don't come around very often. These guys, they're up for election every 4 years. A lot of times they don't even draw opponents, so we don't even get to see them then. And so I got involved with Judge Deason's campaign a little bit a while back, and it's kind of a touchy deal. We're all Republicans here, and we're all for Republicans, and go down here and help the Steve Russell campaign because we're going to help these Republicans. But when it comes to these judicial races and judicial candidates, you remember a while back, a year ago or whatever it was, we had the gentleman from the ACLU out here. And we all agreed with that man. When it comes to privacy rights and stuff like that, and those drones flying over and spying on us, we were in agreement with the ACLU. And you look at the Supreme Court, and sometimes on this privacy stuff, I'm siding with Sonia Sotomayor and Elena Kagan and those left-wing lunatics. You know, but when it comes to that privacy stuff, so when it comes to this judicial stuff, you know, it gets kind of touchy on what side of an issue they might be on, but they don't even get to tell us what side of the issue they're on. And that's something I'd like to talk about a little bit today. Is that constitutional, you know, from the state, or is it statutorial, or has the Bar Association prevented these guys from telling us how they feel on these issues? So we'll get him to go into that a little bit, but why, my question to him and a lot of my friends, like my mother, why do we care who's sitting down there on that bench in Oklahoma County Courthouse? Now, this gentleman, he's on the criminal docket. So if you're never going to get in trouble, why do you? My mother has never been in that courthouse. Why does she care? We got two judges coming out here next weekend, or next Monday. Now they're on the civil docket. One of them actually ruled on that statue, that monument at the Capitol. So we see the significance of that. But why do we care who's sitting down there on a criminal docket if we're never in our life ever even going to walk in that courthouse? So these are it's kind of an educational deal this week and next week with Judge Deason, and the next week Prince and Pruitt's going to be here, or Stewart, I mean. But this week we got an opportunity. And Zane, would you like to just wave hi? That's it. That's the judge's campaign manager. Anyway, so we're going to get an opportunity to learn some stuff from a district judge, Judge Deason, here, and help me welcome him.
Hey. Actually, Zana back there is not my campaign manager. She's my campaign coordinator. She's the one who makes things happen, gets the troops out, and I couldn't be doing this without her. About 3 months ago, I was meeting with my campaign staff, and they were talking like I wasn't even there about knocking doors, mail-outs, callings, that sort of thing. And I finally interjected and said, "What do I need to be doing?" And they said, "You need to get out there and be a shameless self-promoter." Well, I can tell you, folks, that goes absolutely contrary to everything about me. I know I have to stand up here for a while and talk about myself. I know that goes with the territory, but it's not my favorite subject. A week ago Sunday, after my wife and I went to church, we went out to get something to eat. We had a couple of hours to call our own, so we went to P.F. Chang's, got something to eat. Our waiter brings us our tab. Even though there's 2 of us at the table, for some reason he gives us 4 fortune cookies. So I pick one, my wife picks one, she opens hers up. Her fortune is relax and enjoy yourself. I open mine up, it says relax and enjoy yourself. Now, I'm not going to stand up here and tell you that I think God speaks to us through fortune cookies. Though I think that if he wanted to, he certainly could do that. But my wife Chris and I talked about that over the next few days. Not being much of a self-promoter, I did realize I've had quite an opportunity, and that's to interact with folks like yourself, get out to different groups and speak with them and have the chance to meet, talk to, and find out what's important to the people that I actually serve. So I've made myself relax and enjoy that aspect of it, but it's wearing a little thin. We got 2 weeks to go, but I'm happy to meet you folks and happy to be here. Let me tell you a little bit about my background. I come from a military family. My dad was a career officer. We traveled all around the U.S. and mostly in the Far East. Came to Oklahoma at the end of, right before my senior year in high school. My dad was transferred to Fort Sill. I've been in Oklahoma ever since. I feel like this is my home. I'm a graduate of OU, undergraduate, and also OU College of Law. I got out of law school in 1979. Andy Coates hired me to be an assistant district attorney. I don't think I had any visions of being in that long term, but as I continued in that area, I realized how much I liked working with law enforcement. I liked working with victims of crime. More than anything, I liked feeling that I was doing something that was making a difference to people. So any thoughts that I had that I'd spend a couple of 3 years there, learn a thing or two about being a trial lawyer, and then go on to something else, were pretty quickly gone. And next thing I knew, I look up and I'm about 20 years in, and that's when I started thinking about a different direction in my career. I was appointed as a special judge in July of 1999. The elected district judges actually choose the special judges, is how that works. In 2004, Judge David Harbour retired during the middle of his term. I don't know, have you folks had judges and judicial candidates out here to talk to you?
Yes.
Yeah? Okay. I don't know how much you know about the process of how judges are actually selected in Oklahoma. You have talked about that?
Go, tell us.
Well, district judges, which is what I am, have to run every 4 years. If there's a vacancy in the middle of the office, that vacancy is filled through the Judicial Nominating Commission. Judicial Nominating Commission, I believe, is made up of 15 members. They're all on staggered terms. There are more laypersons in the Nominating Commission than there are attorneys, so it's more friendly to the people of our state rather than just the lawyers of our state. There's a very extensive application that has to be filled out. I think I signed releases for every transcript of every school I went to in my life, probably including my grade school. You can imagine how much fun it was for me to come up with every address of every home where I'd ever lived since I was a military brat. But that's just to say that it's very extensive. Then they assign an OSBI agent full-time to investigate my background. They go, I think they went through my trash, I think they went into my recycle bin to see if there were beer cans out there. One of my neighbors got a call from her teenage son one day after school. He says, "Mom, there's a man here with a badge and a gun asking about Mr. Deason. What should I tell him?" Anyway, after the investigation is done, there's a very intimidating interview with the nominating commission. Then the commission sends what they consider to be the 3 best qualified candidates to the governor's office, and the governor ultimately makes a decision. If you choose to run for office, all you have to have is a law license, I think 5 years experience, and a $200 filing fee. I can tell you that myself, the 2 judges who will be out here next week, we've all been through the nominating commission process. We've all been thoroughly investigated. Can't necessarily say that for our opponents, but that's ultimately a decision you folks make. When I was appointed as a district judge, I knew going into the process that the vacancy to be filled would be in the family and domestic division. Now, family and domestic has long been the red-headed stepchild of Oklahoma County because of probably all the conflict, the high emotions, and just the sheer nastiness of some of the things that go on down there. When a district judge would get appointed into the family and domestic division, he or she would transfer to another docket at the earliest opportunity. And that kind of gets me to why judicial elections are important to you. And I'll use domestic and family as an illustration of that. Divorce is so pervasive in our society anymore. If it's something that you haven't been through personally, you probably have family members, relatives, co-workers, many people in our lives who have been through that, custody battles, and you start thinking about the kind of person who's making a decision in your life, that sort of thing. The first contested hearing in the divorce is what's called temporary order hearings. Those are not final orders, they're temporary. They get people through that part of a divorce before the decree is done. And the kind of orders that are entered there, as far as child custody, visitation, property division, who gets the house, who pays the mortgage, have a profound impact on the lives of people. And because they're temporary, they're not appealable. So you want somebody doing that job who's got some common sense, some life experience. Those are the ways that judicial decisions impact the lives of ordinary people. I can tell you, you have more ordinary people coming through the halls of the Family and Domestic Division than you do anyplace else. Anyway, I made a commitment to myself, because I've never practiced that kind of law, that I'd immerse myself in it, I would learn family and domestic law, and I would stay there and try to keep it stable for a while. So I stayed for 5 years. A good friend of mine and my mentor through my time at the DA's office, District Judge Chuck Black. I don't know if any of you know Chuck. He's very active out of the gun club. He gets really angry at himself if he only hits 49 out of 50 at a skeet shoot. Anyway, Chuck was retiring after being on the bench for quite a few years. He asked me if I would consider taking his courtroom and his docket, and it made sense, being, you know, that he's the fellow who raised me up from a pup. And when I told him I thought I'd do it, I could almost see a little tear in the corner of his eye. Anyway, I've been on the criminal felony docket now for coming up on 5 years. I have tried just about 80 felony jury trials since I've been there. I try to average somewhere around between 18 and 20 a year. I like to keep busy down there. In fact, I've got a trial going on today. We're in the middle of jury selection. When I leave here, I've got to go back down and resume that. I'm a great believer in the jury system. I can say out of all those trials that I've had, I can only think of 2 where I think the jury missed the mark. Almost every time the jury gets it right. And what's amazing about the jury system is very often they find something to base their decision on that didn't occur to any of the lawyers or the judge or anybody else. And that's why it's so important to have citizens participating in our system down there. I think another big part of my job as district judge, when you make the decision to put on the black robe, it doesn't stop at 5 o'clock in the evening. As you folks know, crime continues to occur after that. I won't say that I'm on duty 365 days a year, because I think if I tried to tell you folks I don't take a vacation, you'd think there was something seriously wrong with me. But I do take very seriously being on call for law enforcement 7 days a week and 24 hours a day. And I get probably more calls from law enforcement than a lot of other judges do, simply because they find their favorites and they find the person that they know is going to answer the phone. To back up on that a little bit, my wife Chris, almost 10 years ago, before we were seeing each other, before we were together, lost somebody very, very dear to her, was murdered. He was a young man who was not doing anything he shouldn't have been doing. He was not in the wrong place at the wrong time, but someone got out of a pickup truck in front of him, came back to his SUV with a hunting rifle and shot him. The reason I bring that up is that I have the support of my family on that sort of thing. I never get complaints when the telephone rings at 2:30 in the morning and it's the U.S. Marshals Service who have a fugitive cornered and they need to get into the house. I never get griped at when I have homicide detectives knocking on my door at 3:30 or 4 o'clock in the morning. If the phone rings, she gets the phone, hands it to me, and says, "Here, it's for you." I won't quote her directly, but there was one point. When I came to the criminal docket, the law enforcement phone calls increased substantially. I still got them when I was in domestic and family because police officers knew my background. but they increased substantially when I came to the criminal docket. My wife and I were talking about it, and she said, in no uncertain terms, she said, the day you stop answering that phone is the day I kick your, you know what. What that translates to is that she understands better than most how important it is to, not just to law enforcement, but to victims of crimes and their families to get the investigation started quickly, the right way. I've enjoyed my time on the criminal docket. I think my favorite thing about it is the people I interact with, the jurors that we have. I figure with 80 cases, I'm probably somewhere near 1,000 citizens of this community that I've gotten to interact with. Zana has been my bailiff for 2 years. We made the decision jointly that she would step down and retire as my bailiff so that she could help run my campaign full-time. I knew I was going to lose her pretty soon anyway. She's going to get into law school. She's scheduled taking the LSAT, the law school entrance exam. So she's just been invaluable to me. She's been there with me on the jury trials. The bailiff basically takes care of the jury. She is the liaison, and I've gotten more good feedback and praise based on what she does, not what I do. She's always made me look good. I can't stand up here and tell you that everybody who's been on jury in my courtroom has said, boy, that was fun. I can't wait to do that. Some of the cases are grueling to listen to. Sometimes we make people listen to and hear things that they could go their entire life without ever seeing or hearing. If you can imagine being on a jury when a little 9-year-old girl tells you about her first sexual experience at the hands of, say, a stepfather or boyfriend or someone that she was supposed to trust. And we make ordinary citizens like you folks sit there and listen to things like that. It's incredible. But I love interacting with the juries. I always talk to them for a while afterwards, get a lot of the insight from them. It's one of my favorite things about the job. I've been on the bench for 15 years now. I've been an elected judge since April of 2005. I've been through 2 election cycles and not drawn an opponent. And some fellow came out of the woodwork this year. I'm not going to talk about him because I made myself a promise when I knew that I'd have to engage in a campaign, that my campaign and my position would be based on my experience, my integrity, and my reputation. And I don't have anything to say about the other person. I think I have the experience to continue doing this job. To me, it's an honor and a privilege to be able to do it. I think it's the best job in the world. Even though there are some days, some decisions I have to make that I think to myself, why on God's green earth did I volunteer to do this for a living? But I think that goes for everybody, whatever you do. I think I've done about all the talking about myself that I can do right now. I try to answer questions anybody has. As Ferland said a moment ago, they don't really let us answer a lot of questions. I spoke a couple of weeks ago to a group of pastors at lunch. I spoke for a little while, and one fellow raised his hand and he said, I understand that you can't talk about issues. I said, Judge, are you a married man? I said, yes, I am. He said, if I asked your wife what your position was on abortion, what would she tell me? I said, nice try, you're just going to have to ask her that. I'll give you her phone number. I'll try to field your questions on that as best I can. The authority for the creation of the Oklahoma Bar Association is by virtue of the Constitution, and that is vested in the Supreme Court of the state of Oklahoma. They create and regulate the Bar Association. The Code of Judicial Conduct and the Rules of Professional Responsibility are in place to safeguard the profession, to safeguard the public. We all hear horror stories about the things that some lawyers do. Can you even imagine the mindset of an attorney who checks into the Oklahoma County Jail goes to see someone who is not his client, a female inmate, and he smuggled in with him sex toys. Seriously, it happened not that long ago. And that was a licensed member of the legal profession. So that's why we have the rules in place.
He's not licensed now, is he?
No, he's not. He's working for a law firm that does mostly criminal defense, and I understand he's working for them as an investigator. So anyway, the next person, the next pastor, obviously picked up and ran with that notion. He said, if I asked your wife where you stand on Second Amendment issues, what would she say? And I said, well, I'll answer that one. She would say that Don not only has his carry permit, he has the further cleat certification where you actually have to qualify so that I can carry a firearm for personal protection anywhere in the state. She would say that my husband firmly believes that as a responsible member of this community, he has an affirmative obligation to be prepared at all times to protect his family, his loved ones, and his home from people who would do evil. She would say that he has the mindset to do that, and he has the proper artillery and lots of ammunition. I answered a question in much the same manner at a church I spoke to recently, and that got a round of rousing amens. Yes, sir.
Let's do this because we're kind of videotaping all this stuff. And really, in this part, nothing has ever changed about high noon club. Raise your hand, I'll get the mic around to you, and give us your first name. I kind of messed that part up the first meeting, so let's carry on the same manner.
Name's Paul. In view of the restrictions that judges have, going for office, where do we attack that policy? Is it according to the Bar Association? Is it the Constitution? Is it just some kind of statute? If we want to find out what a judge stands for, we can't unless we ask his wife. So how do we attack that law and get it nullified?
You'd have to start at the U.S. Supreme Court.
U.S.?
U.S. Supreme Court. They had a case, Michigan versus White, not too long ago. That is it's the guiding case on free speech in judges, and it limits it severely. So the chances really of getting anything done on that.
Better idea. Let's attack our Constitution on repugnant laws, because we can't pass nullification laws right now, because we can't pass anything that's repugnant to the U.S. Constitution. So let's change that, and then after that we'll nullify the Supreme Court decision.
Well, what I like about coming to a group like this that's as educated and informed as you folks are, I don't know if you folks knew in advance that I would be here today. If you did know it, I would expect that you would have done some research already. In the time I've been up here, any one of you can get on your iPhone, you can look up, you can find out where I live, you can find out what precinct I'm registered in, you can find out what party I'm registered in, and you can look at my frequency of voting. So while we can't get into real specific issues, there is a lot about me that you can find out. You can get on Google Street View and see that I really like to take care of my yard. Yes, sir.
I'm JT. I was just curious. As a judge, do you see yourself as one to uphold the law or to create new law from the bench?
My job is to uphold the law and to apply it to the facts that come out in the jury trial. And I just had that talk with the jury just a few moments ago. We don't create the law in here. They do that out at 23rd and Lincoln. If you want to change things, go out there. But in here, in my courtroom, we apply the law to the facts that the jury determines.
My name is Jim, Your Honor. Just out of curiosity, if you had not drawn an opponent, Would you have faced a retention ballot, or would you have just continued on in office?
Retention ballots are only for appellate court judges in Oklahoma, the Court of Civil Appeals, Court of Criminal Appeals, and the Supreme Court. If I had not had an opponent after the election, I would get a certificate of election in the mail from the state election board. I have 2 of those on my wall in my office right now, even though I haven't been quote-unquote elected. It's election by acclamation.
Judge, thank you for being here. My name's Mike. What would, in your opinion, be some things that you would like to see that the legislature might pass that would help you adjudicate some of the laws and the things that are going on with people in the state of Oklahoma?
Well, that is a broad question.
Don't you just think that all those legislators are doing just a wonderful job down there? No, that's my joke, I apologize.
I don't in any way want to go to war with the legislature.
Yeah, don't do that.
I think right now we have the fewest number of attorneys in the legislature than we've had that I can remember. And that could be good or bad. The downside of it is we don't have a lot of people in the legislature who really understand what's important to the judiciary, what's important to the bench. There have been some attempts out there to politicize the appointment process. It seems like some people have forgotten 8th grade civics where we learned about separation of powers. I would say right now, well, the legislature has been kind of hostile to us as far as pay. They got crosswise with the appellate courts to kind of take a jab at them. They gave the district court judges a 6% raise, didn't give the appellate court judges a raise. So actually right now, I make more a month and a year than a judge on the Court of Civil Appeals or the Court of Criminal Appeals. And while I appreciate the pay raise, let's keep things in perspective. And
Yeah, but you do know that you're more important to us than they are. Was there a question here? Okay, question.
And I just had a gentleman come up to me and ask me about this Oklahoma County Bar Association, the Judicial Candidate Qualification Poll.
the Oklahoma County Bar Association, in years of judicial elections, commonly sends out a survey to its members. I think that was done back in May or June. Now we know who's going to be on the ballot. They asked the members, I think they used 7 or 8 distinct criteria to rate the judicial candidates as being well qualified, qualified, or not qualified. You're seeing the results of that here. It's available online at the County Bar website as well. But the numbers kind of speak for themselves on that. What you'll see as far as the district courts of Oklahoma County is that the incumbent or sitting judges were overwhelmingly found to be qualified to well qualified. And the persons running against sitting judges right now were overwhelmingly voted by their peers in the County Bar Association who do not qualified to hold judicial office. So I know a group like yourself does their homework. That's one aspect of how you can educate yourself. This poll is made up of the votes of people who have cases against these other candidates, the people who appear in my courtroom, the people who knew me before I was on the bench. It's the people that ride the elevators with us every day. They're the people who are in there elbow to elbow with all of us, and I think their opinion is something you folks might want to research and take into account.
Question.
Yeah.
Question.
That says a lot.
I'm Glenn Howard. I've had probably more phone calls from friends asking about how to vote on the judges than any other issue. And of course, all you see is a whole lot of signs, a whole lot of names, and you don't have an opportunity to know them or really hear anything about them other than their name. It's awful hard to make a decision. Are there community groups that truly do evaluate judges based on their action decisions in the past that is available to citizens, or a citizens community that does any kind of an evaluation and comparison for at least have a little bit of intelligence on how to vote.
Well, I don't really know of very many reputable outfits that do that. What I can say, and I came face to face with this when I was on the family docket, is the great cesspool of the internet out there. There are any number of websites where people can go on when they have an opinion and anonymity. And I found myself on the receiving end of more attacks just on anonymous websites. And people can go to those to look at them.
But those are individuals, one person.
Right. I saw one person who was attacking me because of the decision I made in his divorce case, and as I read what he posted, I could figure out who it was. You know, if you're a police officer, and it wasn't with any metropolitan police agency, okay? If you're a police officer and during the pendency of your divorce, you go to your estranged spouse's house and beat her up and rape her, don't expect a very good result out of it. So, anyway, that's a rant for another time, but I can't really steer you to any place that does that. I think this poll is about the closest we come. But you might still say that's biased because it's the opinion of lawyers, and they're getting honest citizens out there. I think you make a good point.
You know, you said one thing when you first started, you talked about on divorce cases on the first order is non-appealable.
Right.
I did not know that. I thought it was. I mean, and I should actually know better. I'm sorry, I should actually know better. Tell me a little bit about that. So on a temporary order, a divorce docket, that first order is non-appealable ever. Is that?
For an order of the court, whether it's domestic and family, small claims, criminal or whatever, it has to be a final order. And as I said, by its very nature, temporary orders are temporary. Now they can be readdressed during that period if circumstances change. Parties can file a motion to modify the temporary order, so there is some flexibility there. But as I said earlier, there's a lot of discretion there, and there's a lot of ability for one person, one judge, based on his or her life outlook, to affect the lives of people. And that's why it's important that we have good, level-headed folks with common sense.
Question.
I'm Pam, and I was just wondering, are you concerned about the similarity of last names between you and your opponent?
Funny you should mention that. When my opponent was contemplating running for election, he was talking about it and actually told 3 or 4 credible persons in the courthouse, including one other district judge, that out of 15 offices he could have run for, he chose mine because our last names were spelled almost alike, and he hopes to confuse the voters. Now
That's an Obama trick.
yeah, with the help of an attorney that I know and respect, we challenged his candidacy in front of the state election board. They heard testimony from several witnesses who corroborated that he had made that statement. They declined to knock him off the ballot, and then a week or so later we get the written order detailing their findings and their ultimate order, and in one paragraph in that order they clearly confused our names. We tried to take it to the next step. The Supreme Court would not assume jurisdiction, kind of like what they did in the same-sex marriage case, but this was our state Supreme Court. They didn't assume jurisdiction, so he's on the ballot. Does it concern me? Of course it does.
You know, that's why the joke is, you know why they bury attorneys 9 feet rather than 6 feet? Because down deep, they're not really all that bad.
Judges, I look at this list right here and I see a lot of percentages. I have no idea. What are we talking percentage of what? Would you give us a brief explanation of what we're looking at?
Let's do that. Let's do that. And that'll be kind of your last question.
Okay, we'll just come here to talk about me, so I'll just let's take Office 3, Oklahoma County, as an example. There were, I didn't add up how many folks voted. There were only 91 people that had no opinion of me. That tells me I probably know more people in the Bar Association. There are 251 who did not know Mr. Denson. That just means there's 251 people who don't know him. Of people who responded, 84% indicate that they believe that Mr. Denson is not fit to hold judicial office. 4% think that I'm not. And I have to tell you folks, in all seriousness, I'm not being flippant here, I survived 5 years on the domestic and family docket. If only 4% think I'm not competent, I think I'm doing pretty well.
Error margin.
Amen.
Mr. Denson could only find 10 people who thought he was well qualified, 17 who thought he was qualified. I don't know if that's answering your question or not.
Where does this poll come from?
Well, the bar.
It comes from the membership of the County Bar Association.
And thank you for running for this office, okay? Thank you very much for coming to High Noon Club.
Thank you. So one more thing, and while I don't want to sound like I'm correcting you, I don't see this as I'm running for district judge. I am the district judge, and I just want to keep doing it.
One thing that the judge has agreed to do later on, when he's retained as a judge there, he will come back to High Noon Club and talk to us about certain questions we might have about the judiciary and the way things actually work. Again, thank you very much for your time. Thank you for coming to High Noon Club, and I hope it was a good experience for you. So when you go down to the county courthouse, please talk good about High Noon Club. Thank you. Thank you, Judge.
I've got a jury to get to.
Okay. We'll take care of the jury.
Thank you very much.